everyone, and thank you all for being here today. I'm Carrie Still, President of the Board of Commissioners at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. I'm pleased to welcome you to our 10th Annual Sustainability Summit. After holding this event virtually for the past 2 years, I'm thrilled to see all of you in person. Our speakers are ready to share their experiences on how communities are working together for a more sustainable environment. Plus, they will share their observations regarding our exceptional quality biosolids and compost and the value of green infrastructure. I'd like to start the program off first introducing my colleagues on the Board of Commissioners. We have Commissioner Ada Corral Sepulveda, we have Commissioner Mariana Sparopoulos, and we have Commissioner Kimberly Neely Dubuclet. I would also like to welcome our Executive Director, Brian Perkovich. Now, after the presentations, we will announce the winners of the Biosolids Beneficial Reuse and Sustainable Landscaping Awards. We have been hosting this program for a decade, and while the speakers may have changed, the goals remain the same: to provide an opportunity to learn about sustainable resources available from the MWRD and others, and connect and exchange knowledge. Those of us here today share a common value: to protect the waterways and the environment. By working together, we can reduce our carbon footprint and ensure a better world for future generations. We have a wonderful array of speakers today, and they will be happy to answer any questions you have. Before we hear from our first presenter, I have asked Joelle Zavala, Senior Program Specialist and our host here at the Ford Calumet Environmental Center, to give us a brief overview about this beautiful facility. Welcome, Joelle.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Joelle Zavala. I am the Senior Program Specialist here. I also wanted to say welcome on behalf of Stephen Bell, who's our Center Director but wasn't able to be here today. So welcome. If this is your first time at Big Marsh or the Ford Calumet Environmental Center, I really hope that you take time to explore not just the exhibit but some of the grounds as well. It is a 300-acre natural area site. The park's been open since 2016, but really it's kind of just at the beginning of its evolution with a lot of the features that we've added. So from the building being just about a year old to even that pavilion you see across the window here being just 2 months old. So we are happy to have you all. I can speak on kind of the work that I do here, which is a lot of community-based programming. I made a comment to Mariana earlier that this room is usually full of a bunch of third graders, so I kind of have that expectation of what to expect today. But yeah, so this has really been a great site to host a lot of the community and local schools. And our hope is not to just bring them to Big Marsh, but really to highlight the region and to use this kind of as a launching pad, not just to Big Marsh, but the rest of our sites like Steelworkers Park and Marion Burns Park, and then across agencies, right, Bobby and Woods, all those other green spaces, and really just with the focus that these spaces are here and they're for them, and to just use this as a space for them to feel comfortable and to really take ownership over. With that, the building itself, I'm not the person to speak on all the kind of interesting sustainable features. Again, I do it kind of to that third grade level, but again, it's a LEED Silver certified building. It's got a bunch of components that make it that sustainability mark. Probably the most interesting one being that we have a constructed wetland on site, so we're not actually tapped into the city sewer system. So we process our own wastewater here on site, which is kind of unique. But again, other than that, my name is Joelle Zavala. I'll be up front. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you and welcome all again.
Thank you. I would like to kick off the program by introducing Dr. Theresa Johnston, MWRD Senior Environmental Soil Scientist. who will give an overview of biosolids and compost use as a sustainable practice. There has been much misinformation about the contents of biosolids and our EQ biosolid compost and effects on health and safety on the plants we grow. But Dr. Johnston will discuss there are a great deal of benefits. Her research focus is the application of biosolids and restoration of native soils using biosolids. She is interested in adding carbon to our soil to mitigate climate change and reduce the impacts of contaminants upon humans and ecosystem health. Welcome, Dr. Johnston.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. I often have the opportunity to talk about the benefits of biosolids, including the addition of organic matter to our soils. This provides food for the soil. It improves that ecosystem, improves soil health, and promotes plant growth. And that leads to better plant ecosystems, better use of that runoff water and infiltration, reducing stormwater runoff and flooding, filters that water to create better water quality, and overall contributes to healthier environments. But today I'm not going to focus on the benefits of biosolids themselves, but on our partnerships. This is a typical urban ecosystem. It has the inputs of energy, food, and clean water, things that we all need to survive. We utilize those in our community, and then the outputs are pollution, waste, and flooding, along with contaminated water. This is not a sustainable city. This is a problem. If we shift the paradigm, and instead of considering pollution, waste, and floodwaters as problems but as resources, we can create a cycle that creates a sustainable urban ecosystem. We can take biosolids from our water reclamation process and convert them into beneficial soil amendments that can improve our soil quality, restore urban environments, and result in a cycle instead of high inputs and negative outputs. Not only are we then reducing that negative impact on our ecosystem, but we're also reducing the amount of material that needs to come into our cities. How do we create this paradigm shift? We start at that wastewater level, and we look for the renewable resources that we're able to recover, including water. By creating clean water, we're returning it to the surface waters, usable and beneficial to our ecosystems. Capturing energy that's otherwise returned to the atmosphere as carbon emissions. It can now be used for energy within our system, reducing the need for inputs from external sources. Finally, nutrients. Instead of being pollutants in our waterways, they can be used to grow new crops and new food. We can remove those nutrients directly from the wastewater, or in some situations, apply them through biosolids. Two things that I'm going to focus on today in terms of sustainability are carbon and nutrients. Why do we want to think about carbon? Humanity is currently facing our largest challenge ever, and that is climate change. The way to deal with this is to remove carbon from the atmosphere and pull it down in some form to capture it. The International Panel on Climate Change put together this figure of different methods of capturing carbon. On this y-axis, we have the cost of each unit of carbon that is captured versus the potential for carbon capture. I want to point out that soil carbon sequestration is not only the cheapest option, but it also has the highest potential. This makes this extremely important, especially in terms of biosolids. For example, the MWRD on average has about 40,000 tons of carbon in its biosolids each year. Recent research by Guanglong Tian and the Soils Group at the MWRD shows that application to farmland actually results in carbon sequestration compared to farmland that doesn't have that amendment, even if it's not tilled, and is still emitting carbon into the atmosphere. To put this in perspective, over the past 20 years, the amount of biosolids that have been land applied have resulted in the equivalent of nearly 150,000 passenger cars off the roads each year. Land application is making a very positive impact for climate change mitigation. The next portion of sustainability is nutrient loss reduction. As I mentioned, our biosolids contain a lot of nutrients. In fact, about 6,000 tons per year of nitrogen and 3,000 tons per year of phosphorus. These nutrients could get carried into our surface waters and act as pollutants by creating a dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. This is devastating to that ecosystem and the economy in that region of the country. Additionally, it pollutes our own surface waters, creating negative algal blooms. Instead, we can recover these resources and use them in a positive way to grow plants. We need these resources. They're highly valuable. They just need to be in the right place. And we can do this by using biosolids. We are not the only municipal wastewater treatment organization that has figured out this synergistic relationship between our resource recovery and our communities. TAGRO is the Tacoma, Washington biosolids product. They have a partnership with Pierce County Conservation District in which they've provided biosolids to over 90 community gardens and restored many vacant lots to productive soil use. In return, Pierce County Conservation District helps educate the community on the benefits of biosolids and the importance of soil health. Bloom is the DC Water's product for biosolids, and similar to the MWRD, they have diversified customers so that they have many partners throughout the counties and states surrounding Washington, D.C. Milorganite is perhaps the country's oldest biosolids reuse program. It's coming from the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District, and they are focused on sustainable reuse of biosolids and have partnered not only locally with their community, but they distribute throughout the country and work with sustainability leaders such as Melinda Myers and Joe Lample to teach the importance of beneficial reuse. Finally, I wanted to mention that we do have other local municipalities that are doing beneficial reuse. The Downers Grove Sanitary District partners with its own residents in which it takes their waste and then gives them free biosolids in return for their gardens and landscaping. I also want to point out that they have increased their gas production to become a net zero facility by co-digesting fog materials with biosolids. Today I want to talk more about the partnerships that we have with the MWRD, and the first is our Green Infrastructure Project Opportunity Program, in which we offer the ability for other villages and places within Cook County to get grants to share projects with the district so that they can deal with infrastructure problems such as stormwater management. There are a lot of rain gardens and bioswales included in these programs, and this can use a lot of biosolids to plant native vegetation to deal with that stormwater. In these situations, we have biosolids contributing to better stormwater management to reduce flooding. It's filtering the runoff coming from residential yards, often containing high nutrients, so we're doing nutrient capture, and it's adding carbon to the soil, therefore mitigating climate change. So this is a triple threat of biosolids reuse here. I want to highlight this project, which was done in Alsip. It was the conversion of this Alsip boat ramp parking lot to the Mary Schmidt Community Sanctuary. And I think the photos speak for themselves. This is from March 2021 compared to July 2022. We had about 1,500 tons of air-dried biosolids and EQ compost that were used with the soil mix to restore this parking lot to a native plant landscape. It not only serves as a way to help control stormwater runoff. In this case, it had been part of the problem. Here, it's creating a solution. But it's also creating native habitat for organisms right along the Cal-Sag channel. It's protecting that waterway from that polluted runoff, and it's providing a sanctuary and green space for the residents of Alsip. The partners involved in that project were the Village of Alsip, the Morton Arboretum, the Chicago Region Tree Initiative, and the MWRD, and it was funded through the Great Lakes Restoration Grant. We have another program that we participate in called Space to Grow, and in that program, the partners are Healthy Schools Campaign, Open Lands, Chicago Public Schools, the Chicago Department of Water, and the MWRD. And this program has the goal of creating useful play spaces for children at the schools that were formerly parking lots or other very problematic spaces that contributed to stormwater runoff and did not have a healthy, beneficial use for those children. And instead now they provide native green spaces, areas that the children can play, and are a benefit to the local environment. We have had hundreds of area partners over the past 20 or so years that have used biosolids and compost in their projects, whether it is establishment of a new park from a parking lot in downtown to Maggie Daly Park, or simple creation of new beds or maintenance of athletic fields. These partners have been critical in getting the biosolids into land application so that they can serve as a beneficial reuse. And Big Marsh, where we're at now, is an example of one of these successful projects. The Illinois Farm Bureau and Cook County Farm Bureau are also very important partners for us, and Bona will be speaking shortly with more details on that. But remember that nutrient loss problem. We have a very big problem with overloading our surface waters with nutrients, particularly nitrogen and phosphorus, and municipal wastewater and farmland are the two biggest culprits of this. Instead of pointing the finger at each other, we have worked together to collaborate, to create solutions, to do research, to educate each other and work together to reduce the nutrients that are going into our surface waters and then into the Mississippi and Gulf of Mexico. And Bona will share more information on that shortly. We also have other partnerships, including many nonprofit organizations such as the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition and the Calumet Collaborative, in which we participate to learn more and to educate and to just participate in the community to gain our understanding of what the community's needs are and what we have to offer them. We also work with professional organizations and have university partners to help us with our research and for us to help with theirs. So let's go back to the partnerships to build sustainability. We want to create this system. It is much more sustainable than that high throughput of energy, food, and water being degraded and sent out as pollutants. This is an ideal situation. And until we have partners, that's all it remains is this ideal situation. But when we add in those partnerships that we're forming, this becomes more of a reality, and we are able to beneficially reuse our biosolids to help create not just a more sustainable local environment, but to contribute to a more sustainable planet. For more information on our biosolids program, please visit our website, MWRD.org. Click on the Services tab, then go to Biosolids or EQ Compost for more information. You can also email me directly. My email is johnstont at, sorry, this keeps going forward, at MWRD.org. And thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Dr. Johnston. That was very enlightening. I'm very excited about the future in biosolids and compost and MWRD and all the partnerships that we can form. Our next presenter comes to us from the Cook County Farm Bureau. Ms. Bona Heinsohn is the Farm Bureau's Director of Governmental Affairs and Public Relations. She also serves as the organization's local government lobbyist. In addition, she directs the organization's policy-generating process, outreach activities, and events. Bona will discuss the MWRD Farm Bureau's collaboration to advance nutrient loss reduction goals.
Thank you so much. And it's an honor truly to be here. This is the first time I've been at this site, and it is absolutely beautiful. Congratulations to the MWRD. It's great to see so many partners in the room, and it's great to present after Theresa. We have worked now for quite some time with Theresa on the area of biosolids and compost, but we're going to kind of step back just a little bit and kind of tell you how we got there. Oops, right after I break the PowerPoint. So we're going to skip the agenda and just kind of dive into it. So several years ago, Farm Bureau, wastewater treatment plants, environmental groups, agriculture, everything started talking about nutrient reduction. We realized there's a tremendous problem with nutrients going down the Mississippi into the Gulf. We recognize it, and together with partnerships and through collaboration, we're committed, just like the MWRD is, to reducing that. So we said it's a science-based framework. It includes numerous goals, and it includes a long-term goal of a significant reduction. But the question is, how are we going to get there? You know, how as a community are we able to move this forward? See, I'm breaking it. So we came back as a group, or internally with Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau has contributed nearly $2.4 million of our own funds through membership donations and everything to build and maintain stewardship programs, to fund outward-facing research, demonstration, get these programs, these processes, these activities onto our farms. But to do it, we have to find best management practices, and we have to realize how we can do it. And so part of this has also been supporting research and taking that research onto our farms. So we have primarily focused on our farms and everything with in-person learning, so field days, and this is actually a photo from one of them. We've gone through the media, through earned media, social media, radio, television, everything like that, to talk about getting these programs, building these partnerships, and moving them out onto the farms and to our members. So, and right quick, we're going to drive 190 miles. We're going to take a quick trip. We're going to go down to Fulton County. How many of you know that MWRD, and MWRD staff, you can't answer this, okay? Or commissioners, you can't know that the water district owns property in Fulton County. Not many of us. I honestly, you're a commissioner. No staff, no commissioners. So MWRD has this beautiful piece of property that they were purchased in the 1970s, and it's to restore formerly strip mine land. It is nearly 14,000 acres, of which 4,000 were converted to productive farmland. So, and it is conveniently 190 miles away. Don't get stuck in traffic. So, sorry. On this site, one of the things that MWRD did is they decided to turn it also into research. So with the partners, with the researchers and everything, they're developing programs to demonstrate the effectiveness of best management practices as they relate to agriculture and farm fields. Because people before me identified that there's truly an opportunity for these sources of the nutrients to work together. Rather than pointing fingers and say, you're more guilty than I am, they came together and said, hey, we both are guilty. Let's figure out a way forward and let's do it together. So we in Farm Bureau joke that the Fulton County site is truly the Disneyland on nutrient loss reduction strategies. So we love having the opportunity to go down there because there's very few areas that you can see all this different type of research and all of these partners working together. So they have done everything, and there's several researchers here who can speak to these projects much better than I ever could. I really just go down to Disneyland, ride on the wagon, listen to them talk, and look at how cool it is, and then take it back to my members and say, hey guys, we need to be going down. This is an opportunity. But they're looking at cover cropping, riparian grass buffers, bioreactors, runoff irrigation, sub-irrigation, drainage water management, biochar, and then watershed-wide nutrient reduction. And this has all been done in partnership with a variety of researchers, technology centers, colleges, and the Farm Bureau. This is truly, when we talk about nutrient reduction, this is one of the highlights that we point to within the state. Because what MWRD and their team of researchers and their partners have done here is truly state of the art. Nowhere else can you go and see this much research and this many things going on, all focused with the same end goal. How do we reduce nutrients running into the Mississippi, into the Gulf? And how do we do it in collaboration with one another? So we have done, as part of this, and we're not going to watch the videos or anything like that, but I'm happy to share those. Part of our goal is, once we have the research and we have these techniques, how do we get them back into our farmers, our members' hands? So as part of that, we've done a variety of field days. We've done them in 2018, 19, 2020, we had to go virtual, so we did it more internal focused. Then we brought it back in 21 and 22, and for those of us on the calls, we know that plans for 2023 are already in progress. And last time I checked, we haven't even had Halloween, and we're talking about next summer. So bringing us back our 190 miles and bringing us here in Cook County. There's a variety of things that we're doing locally and have been very fortunate to partner with the district on. In 2021, it was quite simple. We brought farmer members, we brought our staff down to field days. Then we flipped them and we brought downstate farmers, we brought urban farmers, we brought conventional, we brought row crops, we brought specialty crops up to the district. Because where else can our members learn about the district than at the district? And from that, we sat them down in a room and we said, what can we do? What are our opportunities? How do we partner? And from that, we built out 2022, and we kept field days because really Fulton County is pretty cool. If you haven't been there, you really need to be. We brought them back on the tour because, again, they need to see where these products, where the biosolids are being generated, where the compost is coming from, the processes that go into it to fully understand it. But what we also built out of it was a compost and biosolid promotion, because we see this, farmers want this biosolid. We want to be able to use it. We want to continue to use it. And we need to get the information out to our members that there is opportunity here. We have opportunities from a productivity standpoint for our crops, but also from a climate change mitigation standpoint, and we recognize that. But we're the Cook County Farm Bureau, so our membership's also urban farms and urban growers, and both of these tools are tremendous opportunities for those urban growers. So we actually set, going into the planting season, we worked on a promotion and everything, and how promoting it out to our members and how you use it, what can you use it on, how do you get a hold of it, where do you get it from? Because we want to keep these available for our members as a tool, not only for their production, but also to mitigate climate change. So this is another video, and we're not going to show it, but I am happy to share it with you. But Tim, in it, speaks very highly of the partnership we've created and about the opportunities that exist through this partnership and this collaboration. As we start looking forward to 2023, our goal is to expand this partnership and to expand it more locally. We still want to go down to Disneyland, I'll be honest, because you got to. But we want to bring it back more locally and do a stakeholder discussion, because there's more. This last year we were able to incorporate additional partners. There's more partners out there. It's identifying additional partners and identifying additional areas for collaboration. A group of us are sitting down to start working on a white paper, because quite frankly, not everybody can go to Fulton County. Not everybody can see the compost site or the biosolid site, but we have an opportunity to educate. And we have an opportunity to get that information out and be able to talk about it. We'll talk a little bit more about the struvite site in a second, but we're going to continue that. And then we'll build in also to the struvite webinar. So as many of us have heard of Milorganite, we have struvite. And we're working with the Margonaut Research Group at University of Illinois. Our plan was to start this year, but we had a situation arise that we had to postpone that. But what we're actually going to do is test the struvite as a viable source for corn, soybeans, and wheat, but we're going to expand it for the first time into row crops, or I'm sorry, into specialty crops, and take a look and see, does the gains we're seeing on the row crop side translate to our specialty crop? Can we use it as an opportunity for tomatoes? What about beans? What about peppers? And both of these sites, which is something is really cool that we're producing this in Cook County, we're going to test it in Cook County. So we're expanding it to a Cook County row crop site and also a specialty crop site in Cook County. Neither of these are urban. They would be more of the conventional side. And they are both South Cook County area. And we look forward to continuing it. So the main goal of the entire presentation was to talk about there's so many opportunities. And many of the opportunities have come through this partnership, but there's avenues for collaboration, for partnerships going forward. And I encourage anyone who has an interest in this, let's talk. Maybe there's opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bona, for your hard work and your partnership with MWRD. And now I'd like to turn our attention to Rich Fisher, our MWRD Principal Civil Engineer, and he works in our Stormwater Division. Rich oversees many of the MWRD stormwater master planning efforts and pilot studies and administers the MWRD flood-prone property acquisition program, a very important program for us. Rich has over 25 years of professional experience planning, designing, and managing public and private capital improvement projects. He will discuss MWRD's partnership programs, the role of green infrastructure, flood-prone property buyouts, and how to apply for grants from public sector resources.
Thanks, everybody. My name's Rich Fisher. I'm not from Chicago, if you can't tell by now. Originally from South Carolina, but actually lived in Chicago longer than I lived in South Carolina, so a little fact for you. So I'm just going to kind of go over some of our programs. Basically, it's broken up into 4 distinct categories. One, there's what we refer to as our Stormwater Phase 1 program, which is really was our initial avenue into stormwater management or providing stormwater services. It's really regional projects that we designed and constructed. And then we got into our Stormwater Partnership Program, which we initially called Phase 2, which is basically we're partnering with local communities to solve local flooding issues. And we also have our Flood-Prone Property Acquisition Program, which I'll cover, and our Green Infrastructure Partnership Program, which we have partnerships with communities. Just kind of give you a timeline. I like to point out that, or at least I feel, it's kind of been a short period of time that we've been working on this. We initially got authority to be the Stormwater Authority for Cook County in 2004, and then we started doing our detailed watershed plans and kind of wrapped those up in 2009, and that's when we started doing our Phase 1 program of like 2010. And then in 2014, we had our legislative authority. We amended to include local stormwater projects. And we started doing local stormwater projects then, and in 2015 is when we initiated our green infrastructure projects. This is just kind of a time lapse of kind of the projects that we've taken on since 2010. This brings us all the way up to this year, January this year. I know it's kind of like a bunch of dots on a map, but one thing I want to kind of point out is that this is not just us doing these projects. These are, a large majority of them are partnerships where we're partnering with communities. We can provide technical expertise and funding for these projects, and so a large majority of these are led by the communities that are doing it, and we're providing kind of the extra emphasis to get the projects done. This is kind of a summary of that dot picture that was just up. Basically, you can kind of tell By this, the big information is that we've been involved with over 229 projects, providing flood relief for over 17,000 homes, with a total construction cost of around $750 million, and MWRD has contributed nearly $500 million toward these projects. Kind of go over our stormwater partnership program, or initially phase 2. There's basically 2 categories that we work with. We have the conceptual projects, which really we're kind of targeting communities that do not have the capacity or resources to develop solutions to flooding in an area. We can kind of come in and help identify the solution, develop conceptual ideas, and even help carry it all the way through design and construction. But our conceptual projects is really targeting communities that don't have the capacity to really address flooding issues. And then we have our shovel-ready program, which is really for the communities who have gone and done the engineering, kind of done the necessary engineering to get it to construction, and we can provide funding for those projects. Some of the requirements are kind of to be eligible. One, our main focus is really looking at solving structural flooding. I know some other agencies like IDOT and communities can be focused on like street flooding, but our really focus is looking at, you know, how many structures can we provide flood protection for, because that's really the people of the county that's what we're really targeting, is trying to provide flood relief for them. Project must be, we're looking for like either storage, conveyance, or stream channel improvements. We're really having an emphasis on the storage. We don't really want to create a situation where we're strictly conveying the problem downstream to the next community. We really need to kind of get more into the storage and distributed storage throughout Cook County to address that. The projects have to be in accordance with our procurement requirements and our diversity goals as far as providing for the construction. The partner agency, again, we kind of are relying on them to be the kind of like the champions of the project. So we really want them to be the owners and maintainers of the project. We can provide the expertise and funding to get the project in ground, but we really want them to be the one that's going to own and operate it. It has to be a public entity. Our program is not a grant program, it's really a partnership program. So in order to accomplish it, we have to be able to partner with a governmental entity in order to get it done. So that's a big requirement. It has to be a governmental entity that we can have an intergovernmental agreement with. Moving on to our flood-prone property acquisition program. Basically, we target homes, and again, this is a partnership program. The district ourselves are not the one that purchased it. We rely on the local agency to be the lead on this. And basically, we can provide funding for the acquisition of the home. It targets homes that are within the floodplain or within our detailed watershed plan within the inundation area. Must have a benefit cost ratio of 1. That's, I don't know if anybody's familiar with FEMA, but FEMA has, with their buyout program, they require a benefit cost of 1, and we're using that same standard with ours. Recently, this year, FEMA released that really any home that is $323,000 or less doesn't require BC. That they found that running the calculations that anything below that you can hit the 1. The one thing about the flood-prone property acquisition I would have to say is that there's been a lot of studies on flood-prone property acquisitions, and it's actually been demonstrated it's one of the most cost-effective means for addressing flooding, to be able to pay for these homes and allow for people to move out of them is really one of the most cost-effective means for addressing flooding, and really pull back from the flooding to address it. Our green infrastructure kind of strategy is really I've got several things that we got up here to kind of include with that. We also have like kind of our rain barrel program that we have, where we've actually distributed throughout Cook County. I think it's over 140,000 rain barrels. We also have a comprehensive land use program where we do have land throughout Cook County that we lease, but part of that requirement is that we do have green infrastructure requirements with that lease. And we also offer incentives with the lease, as far as discounts on the lease itself when they do implement additional green infrastructure. And then we have our standard green infrastructure program where we partner with communities to develop retention. Now, the one thing I would have to say, like as far as the importance of GI, is really you got to think of like every storm is kind of like a roulette wheel, right? And you don't know where it's going to hit. You don't know how big it's going to be. And really, if you want to win that on the roulette, you want to pay more than one number on red. You don't want to play 11 red. So one of the big advantages with the green infrastructure is really distributed volume throughout. So rather than playing 11 red, you're playing all red, and you're more likely to capture some of the storm event. That's one of the big advantages with green infrastructure, is really distributed storage. This is some statistics on our green infrastructure. So far, we've done 80 projects, and I believe we've captured, in these 80 projects that we've partnered with, we've captured nearly 9 million gallons of storage throughout. Typically, on average year, we get 30 to 40 applications. 30 to 40 applications, and we pick 10 to 20 projects to do every year. Again, kind of similar eligibility requirements with our Stormwater Partnership Program. Again, one, and just I didn't really mention this, but it does have to, the project has to have to be within the corporate limits of the district. It's got to be managing stormwater using green infrastructure. Project, again, has to adhere to our procurement and diversity requirements. And applicant must be willing to maintain and own and maintain. And that's kind of a real big issue, especially with GI. It is a relatively new, I would say, stormwater technology as far as addressing it, and having that staff that are capable of maintaining and operating is one of the real key elements of that. And again, it has to be a governmental entity that we can partner with on those projects. Another part, kind of a new initiative, is really encouraging green infrastructure at the residential level. We have developed our Green Neighborhood Guide, which kind of gives guidelines on how to implement GI on individual property. We give instructions on how to install a rain barrel, how to do rain gardens, how to have permeable pavers for different areas. This is available online if you want to check it out. It's something I think it's a really good resource for individual homeowners as far as if they're interested in addressing green infrastructure. Another element that we're working on too is developing what we're referring to as a Green Neighborhood Guide, and actually kind of building on what we've kind of developed with the Green Neighbor, and look at kind of a community level, like how can some of these elements be tied into further GI throughout. And that we're working on that. We're hoping to have that out either end of this year or first of next year. We can have that out for soon. This is just kind of an example of one of our rain barrels that we have. You can kind of see that we did, again, we've handed out, I think, over 140,000 rain barrels throughout Cook County. We also have increase the canopy, where we actually give away trees and saplings to the area to improve, stormwater and green infrastructure throughout Cook County. And moving on to grants. Now, grants are kind of an interesting part of what we do, and I will tell you that we were heavily involved with this in a lot of different ways. One, it's not just going after grants, but we also work with communities that get other funding sources. And a lot of times we have to adapt to what other granting sources. I'll give you, for instance, like last night I was talking to the Public Works Director at Flossmoor, and they just recently had a project that's almost completed. But in that instance, which is a project that we participated in, they had the district, they had Army Corps of Engineers involved, and they had the state of Illinois through IGIG involved, and they provided funding for it. So it's one of the things that we have to do as far as adapting to it. And we go after funding too. We go after grants. That's another big part of what we do. I'll tell you kind of the two big key elements for going after grants, or maybe three. Really is one, it's necessary to have a long-term vision for what you're going to do. It's not necessarily that you're going, buying a lottery ticket and hoping that you win. It's okay, we have a project and we want to make sure that this project gets done. And it's all about really more about the project and developing it to kind of get to that point where you get to construction. And it's really key as far as being able to convey what you're trying to accomplish to the grantor. That's like one of the big elements. And the other thing too is remember is a lot of these grant programs, it's typically people just like you and I, and they have to convey the information in a manner that they can understand the project. The other one is patience. It's going to take time to get it done. Even last night, again, I was at a WPC meeting. We talked about several communities that were working on their projects, and I think 3 of them. One started in 2013. Now they're in construction. The one in Flossmoor was like 2019. I think in Chicago Heights, that one started in 2017. So it's understanding it's going to take time to get it done. So patience is one of the big keys with grants too. Some of the key resources that we find that we go over is grants.gov. This is really kind of a warehouse of all federal grants you can get information on. Another one, as we find, is the Philanthropy Chronicles. This would be more like private entities or private institutions that hand out grants. The thing is consider when you do the grants is, are you eligible? A lot of times there do have requirements as far as typically, sometimes it is governmental agencies. Sometimes they do allow for non-for-profits to apply or non-governmental agencies. What are the overall overall goals of that particular program? Is it stormwater? Is it water quality? What kind of projects have they looked at previously funded? Will your project fit? And I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of effort goes into these, and you don't necessarily want to try to shove a project into a grant that doesn't fit. Are matching funds required? Typically, we do see that. There is matching fund requirement. That can vary from 10% to 50%. How much do they need? Will the award fit within the time frame or when you're going to do the project? One of the key things is typically when they do provide a grant, or when you do get a grant, there is a performance period, and typically it's like a 2-year period that they want to see it in the ground. So it's key that when you do apply that you're ready to go with the project. And then what type of reporting requirements? There is, typically with the federal, there is reporting requirements associated with Davis-Bacon as far as paying prevailing wages on the project and how the money was spent. So there will be reporting requirements on all grants. And do you need letters of support for your grant application? Matching funds, that's one of the big things I'll tell you is like we see as far as kind of a barrier to them, but the thing is don't panic because a lot of times they'll count different things like do you have the design done, the value of the land, any kind of time you spent. The other thing too is the district is we like to help with the matching. It's kind of a pre-vetted program. And it's an easy win for us is if you already got a grant, it's easy for us to help with that match. Writing, it's good to have a writer on staff to help with preparing the grants. Knowing the project and the funders are good, and actually review your grants. Finding any, make sure that you meet the grant program, there's no typos. All that stuff really catches their attention with these things. That's pretty much it. Like the one thing I kind of point out with stormwater, I like to say it's not a spectator sport. It's one of these things that everybody needs to be involved with, and it takes a lot of people to get it done. If you ever have any questions about my presentation, here's my email. It's fisherr@mwrd.org. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm Commissioner Mariana Spiropoulos, and I want to thank everyone for coming out this bright and early morning, and thanks, Rich, for that great presentation. My takeaway is to play more than one number on red at roulette. So. And I'm going to take a quick selfie, and if you don't want to be in, just put your head down. Thank you. Thanks for indulging. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the Calumet Water Reclamation Plant in Calumet Channel, and Richard Lanyon, a retired MWRD Executive Director and author, will share his thoughts about these significant projects in the Calumet region. His book, Calumet First and Forever, published in 2020, details the monumental undertaking of building the Calumet Water Reclamation Plant, Calumet Channel, and intercepting sewer system, and how our predecessors reversed the flow of the Calumet River system. So, without further ado, Dr. Dick Lanyon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mariana, for that introduction, and greetings to you all. I noticed I got a full page in the program for my bio, and I think it tells me you kind of forgot about me already. Anyway, I'm going to tell you about something in the past. You've heard 3 presentations now about the present and going forward, and what wonderful work the district does and will be doing, and I'm going to be telling you about the wonderful work that they have done in the past. Let's see, that's my introductory slide, and then the first, Mariana mentioned my Calumet First and Forever book. That's the 4th of the 4 books. There's a set on the back counter if you want to thumb through them later. Complete history of the district's infrastructure and basically water in the metro area. Okay. Now, the Calumet issue was different from the Chicago River issue, because in the Chicago River issue, they needed a quick fix to get rid of the wastewater that was polluting the river and polluting the lake, and so the plan was to build a canal to divert the wastewater and dilute it with lake water, because that was the treatment technology of the day. This was the 1880s, 1890s. We didn't have sewage treatment like we have today. So that's what was done for Chicago, and reversing the river, and then also capturing all the flow in the sewers that had been built that discharged into the lake. That was completed by 1907. But by 1911, the Calumet River continued to be a growing problem. The Calumet area developed later than the Chicago area, and that's why there's this time difference. The sanitary district at the time reached out to the state of Indiana for help because it was polluting the entire southern end of Lake Michigan. Indiana they shrugged their shoulders, and the idea of building a canal to completely reverse the flow of the Calumet River was vetoed by the federal government. This is the situation we had in Chicago. I hope you can see this map. It's from a 1908 sewer map. And there's very little shoreline in the Calumet area on Lake Michigan, so no sewers were built that discharged directly to the lake, but many sewers were built by the city that discharged to the Calumet River. And there was this pumping station at 95th Street built by the city and that discharged all the sewage and the sewers that came to the pumping stations. Some of the areas of the city west of Lake Calumet discharged their wastewater down to the Little Calumet River via the Indiana and the sewer. And that included the large Pullman rail car manufacturing facility and the community around it. As you can see by the bottom, the district had planned to reverse the river by this channel all the way to Lake Calumet. But as I said, that was vetoed by the federal government because the federal government was worried that the district was discharging too much water and was going to dry up the lake. Not really dry it up. But anyway, this was the city's pumping station at 95th Street. It served until 1925. Following that, the district built a pumping station just to the south, which is still in service underneath the Skybridge, Chicago Skyway. And this building was demolished. It's now a vacant lot. But this was a beautiful coal-fired, steam-driven pumps, a lot of brass and chrome in there. It's a beautiful facility. I never was in there, of course. Now, for the Calumet area, the district had a plan. This was different than what they had done before, just digging a canal to reverse the river. They came up with a plan to deal with the wastewater in the Calumet area. We already knew by 1911 that dilution was not the solution because the rivers were going to hell, even with a lot of dilution from lake water. So the plan was to build intercepting sewers to capture those sewers that were discharging to the Calumet River, build a pumping station to move the wastewater away from Lake Michigan, build a treatment plant to treat the sewage, and at that time it was basically removing most of the solids, and then build a canal so the wastewater, the treated wastewater, could be carried away from the lakefront area and the Chicago area. So the CalSag was built. This is shows the CalSags, 15 miles in length, joining the Sanitary and Ship Canal on the west, just north of Lamont, and terminating on the east end at just near Blue Island, where it connected with the Little Calumet River. So you can see it didn't reverse the entire Calumet River, but it did take up part of the flow. And the purpose basically was to treat the wastewater, receive the treated wastewater from the plant that was built. Building that canal was quite different than building the Sanitary and Ship Canal. The western third, or roughly quarter of was built in rock. That was very similar to building the rock section of the Sanitary and Ship Canal. You had to cut the surface of the wall, and you had to drill and blast to remove the rock. Now you'll notice that the steam shovel in here, loading rock, it is a coal-fired steam shovel, so, or maybe oil, but anyway, you had to supply fuel every day for that purpose, and then you had the rubble, the spoil was carried away by rail cars and driven by a steam locomotive. That was still the primary power for construction. At the west end, they had to connect to the Sanitary and Ship Canal, and that was a very touchy experience because the Sanitary and Ship Canal was flowing. And here you see a drag line excavator pulling off the dike that separated the two waters. And in the foreground, laborers are constructing sheet piling to build a cofferdam to construct the walls that connected the two channels. And again, this drag line is operated with coal-fired steam. And the contractor on this particular part of the canal was James Hayworth. And you'll see him here. The middle section of the canal went through a lot of marsh and peat bogs. And so the first type of construction was to bring in dredges and remove that soft, mushy, wet material. And then when that was cleared off, as you see here in the foreground, bring in the drag lines to take out the firm soil. And if there was rock, they would have to do some drilling and blasting. Now this may look wide to you, but the Calumet Sag Channel originally was only 60 feet wide, about the same width as the I&M Canal, but it was much deeper, so it had the capacity for flow. But it was that narrow because they didn't need a lot of flow at that time. Now here is James Hayworth. He's had several contracts. He was also a very leading contractor on the North Shore Channel. Here he is excavating part of the channel just in the vicinity of Blue Island. And this is an electrically powered drag line in 1916, right? Where did the electric power come from? Notice peeking over the top of the spoil piles are the top of power lines. Where did that power come from? It came from the Lockport Powerhouse, built and owned and operated by the sanitary district at the end of the canal down near Joliet. At that time, the district was in the power business. They transmitted all the power up to a big substation at 31st and Western, and they built a transmission line down Western Avenue to Blue Island, where there was another substation. So Hayworth elected to use an electrically powered drag line, and he built a power line, a transmission line from the Blue Island substation, and there he is. No greenhouse gases, right? Imagine today what the district could do if they required all of their contractors to electrify their equipment. That would be a wonderful promise for the future. Anyway, let's move on. Here, the subsoils were not very stable, so a lot of the channel had to be lined with hand-placed riprap rock to prevent erosion and failures. Through the city of Blue Island, they had limited right-of-way, so the channel was built within concrete walls. And here is, what's the name on that? Guthrie. That was another big contractor of the day. So this structure, the foreground here is the casting plant, and the concrete was batched at another location and brought to this location by a rail. Many bridges were built, I think about 24 in total, mostly road bridges, but about 5 of rail bridges were built. And this is the biggest rail bridge, the Wabash over the Cal-Sag south of Worth. At the time, prior to this building, the Wabash embankment, the trackage was lower on the marsh, so they elected to build a very high-level bridge. Where the district paid for the bridge building, but the railroads generally built their own bridges. This is the crossing of Western Avenue in the city of Blue Island. The new bridge is over there on the right. It contains roadway and sidewalk and trolley tracks for the Western Avenue trolley. And of course on the left is the temporary bridge that was built while the permanent bridge was under construction. Underneath, Stony Creek is flowing through a wooden flume underneath the roadways, and the railroad, this photograph was taken from the Rock Island embankment, and that creek had to be managed while the construction was going on. This is a typical road bridge away from the more intense urban areas. I think this is a Piper Road, which has became Ridgeland Avenue today, and it's just a roadway, no sidewalk, and it says a 5-mile-per-hour road limit, speed limit. I don't think there were many speed traps in those days. After World War II, the federal government widened the Calumet Sag Channel to provide for navigation for the industrial complex in the south end of Lake Michigan. And you couldn't get very many barges through a 60-foot wide channel, so they widened it by a factor of 4. It was now 250 feet wide, and bridges had to be rebuilt or replaced with a wider channel. You can see here in the foreground the bridge where the smaller channel, which was then widened after the bridge was rebuilt. So what are we looking at? We're just south of Worth. We're looking at the Southwest Highway and the Wabash Railroad, which is now the Metro Southwest line. The Corps of Engineers also built a new control on that system. This was built on the Calumet River just south of 130th Street. It contains a much larger lock and sluice gates to control the flow from the Calumet River into the inland part of the waterway system. Now, the Calumet plant that was being built at the same time as that old channel was being built, this was the construction of the first Calumet plant. The first Calumet plant was an Imhoff type plant, and you can see that in some of these photographs around here. Back in the corner of the room, there's this Imhoff tanks. Without the modern equipment we have today, this was the tower crane of the day. A wooden tower, batch plant for concrete at the base of the tower. They'd lift the batches of concrete up, and then it would flow around the site through these tubes that were hung there by cables connecting the towers. Quite innovative. This was the influence screens for the pump station. You'll notice it's out in the open. Well, they had trouble with freezing in the winter time, and they learned to put their screens inside a building and keep it warm. This is a typical Imhoff tank in operation. Imhoff tank is a 2-level system. The upper level is for settling the solids, and then the solids fall into the bottom and digest in the bottom. The district used this widely in some of its earlier plants, and the last Imhoff tank was taken out of service just recently, a few years ago, at the West Side plant, also known as the Stickney Works. At Calumet, they were looking ahead, and they said we have to investigate and experiment with new technology, and they built a small activated sludge plant integral with the plant. Here's the operating gallery. Behind it are the aeration tanks, and in the foreground are the settling tanks. And the experimental work that was done here was used in the design of the north side, or now the O'Brien plant, and also the west-southwest plant, which is the part of the Stickney plant. In the background, the large building, the experimental work there was going on vacuum filters to dry the sludge. And then this technology was used at the second Calumet plant as well as at the west-southwest plant. Back at west-southwest, the district produced heat-dried activated sludge. They called it fertilizer, and it was sold in bulk. So it was a revenue-producing product from about 1950 to 1980. Some of the air-dried sludge from the Imhoff tanks at the Calumet plant was put on experimental farms right on the plant site, and there you see they were growing crops. And so, you know, these guys that are doing work in Fulton County, it's nothing new. We were doing it way back then. To get the sewage to the plant, the intercepting sewer system eventually spread out over all the south suburbs, You can see it here, all the black lines as far as west as Orland, Oak Lawn, and southwest Orland Park, going farther south Matson and Sauk Village. 305 square mile area serving about 49 municipalities and roughly a population of 1 million people. And the plant, of course, is located right here on the southwest of Lake Calumet. Now, Calumet is a place name. It's recognizing the and honoring the indigenous people that lived in this area and before the Europeans came to settle it. So it has a lasting influence, just like your biosolids. You want them to have a lasting influence. It's the largest district plant, and it should always be named Calumet. And for that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dick. It's always great to hear about MWRD's fascinating history, isn't it? At this time, I would like to point out that our 2021 and 2025 strategic plan is now in its second year. And one goal of the plan pertains to community engagement. Stemming from that goal is the creation of community partnership councils for each of the 7 areas where our water reclamation plants are located. It made sense to start with the area nearest to our oldest plant, which you now know as the Calumet Water Reclamation Plant, celebrating its 100th year of service. The goal of the Calumet Partnership Council is to serve as a liaison between the Calumet plant and the neighboring community, ensuring the MWRD is a responsive neighbor and inclusive partner. Council members were selected from applications received from the community-based organizations, schools, businesses, healthcare, and general public to represent a diverse cross-section of the community. Members will serve a minimum of a 2-year term. I would like the members to please stand and remain standing at your seat when called. Saul Arbula.
Arambula.
Thank you. Arambula. Sarah Brown. Michael Frater. Brandy Kishner. Donald McGrew. Damon Nelson. David Peterson. Brendan Troutman. And Kate Whalen. Unfortunately, Stephen Bell and Tom Shepard could not be with us today, but we look forward to seeing them in future meetings. I would like to thank all of you for volunteering your time as an endeavor for volunteering your time on this new endeavor. We appreciate you all taking a step out and just basically making sure the voices of your community are heard. Often we talk about the changes we want to see and maybe even sometimes complain about it, but it's good to see people want to step up and be partners with us to help. So thank you all so much, and I look forward to engaging with you in more months to come. Thank you. So now's the time we've all been waiting for, the presentation of the coveted Sustainable Landscaping and Biosolids Beneficial Reuse Awards. The first award for sustainable landscaping goes to the Village of Elmwood Park. The village implemented a green infrastructure treatment train consisting of a detention basin, rain garden, and bioswales to manage overland flow stormwater runoff. Here to accept the award is Paul Volk, Village Manager. Please come to receive your award and say a few words. Is he here? Paul? All right, well, let's give Paul a round of applause. And we will make sure he receives his award. The second award for sustainable landscaping goes to the Village of Brookfield. Accepting the award for the Brookfield is Village Manager Tim Wiberg. And if I mispronounce your name, just correct me when you get here. The village implemented an initiative for paving its alleys with permeable brick pavers along the center of the alley and including aggregated beneath the pavement to provide storage for runoff. Tim, please come up to receive your award and say a few words. Tim? Let's give Tim a round of applause. Okay, so we have shared awards. Moving right along. We have shared awards for biosolids beneficial reuse. The Village of Alsip and the Chicago Region Trees Initiative work together for use of EQ biosolids and compost to reconstruct topsoil and create a new fertile growing space for over 200 trees, shrubs, and native prairie plants at the new Alsip boat launch. This project used biosolids, native vegetation, and other vegetative green infrastructure features to intercept rainwater and reduce runoff to protect the quality of the Calsac Channel while also making the channel an attractive and accessible destination. Now let's see. Accepting the award for this initiative is John Ryan and Mike Frater, Public Works. So maybe, these are, and if you guys can please step over to the podium to maybe, well, you don't have to step over, it's not right there. But if you would like to say a few words, we definitely.
Sure. Good morning, my name is John Ryan. I'm the mayor of the Village of Alsip. Mike Frater is our public work director. And certainly we thank the MWRD for recognizing our community. And obviously, you took a great piece of land that we've been utilizing for some time along the Calsac River to make it a green infrastructure project. And we actually designated the name of the new site as the Mary Schmidt Community Sanctuary. Mary Schmidt retired a couple years ago. She oversaw our Chamber of Commerce for over 40 years. And I tell you, the Village of Alsip has really done well during her tenure, and we felt it right to name the area after her, remember her and our hard work over there too. We've been blessed I've been mayor 5 years, and we don't have a village manager. We have a strong mayor form of government, so I've learned a lot in the 5 years. Mike has been there, how many 25 years? 30 years in public works. I learned a lot from these guys, and they represent us well. And again, we thank you for recognizing our community to do this. And it's a great piece of green infrastructure out there now that Calsac River.
Thank you for working
Sure.
with us. Thank you. All right, so let's just give one more round of applause to all of the award winners. Your achievements are very impressive and serve as leading examples for all of us to follow. We love success stories like this because, one, we're able to go out into other communities and then talk about the partnerships that we've created and have visuals, but also you are great examples for other areas, other municipalities, because then you could tell them how great it was to work with us. And you know, they'll be more so willing to too, because you will be surprised how hard it is for sometimes for us to get other areas to embrace green infrastructure or to love the environment as much as we do. So we need examples so that we can encourage other people to do what we all would like them to do. We will have a link available soon for you to rewatch and share today's program. So please, everyone, share the program, because like I was just stating, we have to talk this topic up constantly if we want to help maintain a clean water environment and a green environment. I'm guessing it'll be on our website, correct? Please let us know if you have ideas for the future programming, whether on a virtual platform or in person. We offer virtual tours every month, and that's becoming very popular, and I hear it's gotten even more animated since we first started during the pandemic. So you really should help us share that information about the virtual tours, but we will start in person in January, I believe. You can also find a link on our website, MWRD.org. Thanks again for attending today. And this concludes our program. I appreciate you all participating so much. Thank you. Never hesitate to reach out to us. Any questions, comments, if you want to volunteer even more of your time, just let us know. Reach out to us. Thank you.